We've seen how to access individual values out of a dictionary. Just like with lists, let's now see how we access all of them. How do we iterate over a dictionary using loops? So iterating over a list is a bit more straightforward because a list on its own is already iterable. All we have to do is just, for num in whatever the list name, for num in numbers, for color in colors. There's a little extra step we have to do with a dictionary. So suppose we have this dictionary, same one, instructor, has all sorts of keys and values of all different types. If we wanted to print every single piece of information out, every value, we could do something like this, blah, 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 you see where I'm going here. Print instructor name, print instructor owns dog. And what a surprise. This is not a good way of doing things. And this sets us up to see the real way of doing things using a for loop. So this sets us up to see the real way of doing things using a for loop. And there's actually a couple of options. Because we have, keys and values, we'll see how to loop through the keys, we'll see how to loop through the values, and then we'll see how to do both at the same time. So let's start with the values. Typically, that's the more important information that you want out. There's a .values method. So on any sort of dictionary, we can run instructor.values. And this will give us an iterable collection then we can run a for loop with. So, just like any other for loop, this is up to us. You could call it value. You could call it key if you wanted to. It's not going to be a key, but you can name it whatever you want. V and value are probably the most common. In instructor.values, and then we can do something with the value. So let's try it out here. I'll just paste in that dictionary. And if we just do instructor.values, you'll see it returns this dict values thing. It doesn't really matter exactly what this is at this point. We'll learn more about them later. But what does matter is that it's loopable, it's iterable. We can loop through it. So now I can do, let me recall that, and just do a for v in instructor.values, let's just do print v. And there we go. We get called true for Python false. It's giving us the values. So we can also do the exact same thing for keys, just .keys. Otherwise, it's identical. So if we just looked at the keys to start, we get name, owns dog, num course, his favorite language is hilarious in 44. And then if we just redo that loop, but .keys, and let's just print the key. Oh, well, I actually left it as v, so I'll just print v. Not the best name for keys, but it does the exact same thing, and we get name, owns dog, num courses, and so on. Okay, so those two, they're things, you can do them, but a lot of the time you'll probably want to access both. And so for that, we use .items. It's another method. And if we just run .items on instructor, you'll see what we get back is this dict items. So we had dict keys, dict values, dict items. These are the loopable, iterable collection versions of a dictionary. Basically, they're made to pass on to a for loop so that we can loop through them. And you can see here we end up with, name and colt. It doesn't really matter exactly what this is. We will talk about them, but you can see we end up with some structure that is loopable. So we just pass it in as a for loop, but the difference is we don't just have one piece of data. So it's not for v in instructor.keys or for value or for key. We need key and value. So what we can do is just write two variables here. Totally up to us what we want to call them, but the first one will be the key and the second one represents the value. So the name doesn't matter. And then we have access to both of them inside the loop. So we could do something like for k, v in instructor dot items, Let's do an f string and let's do key. So I'll write key is and interpolate the key, k, and value is and interpolate v. And there we go. Key is name and value is colt. Key is owns dog and value is true, and so on. So this is a very common loop that you'll see when we're working with dictionaries. K and V, or key and value, are the most commonly used variable names, but you could do whatever you want. So that's the basics of looping through dictionaries. There's 3 methods we can take advantage of. .values if we want to loop through the values, .keys if we want to loop through the keys, and most commonly .items if we want both at the same time. We just need to provide 2 variable names, and then we have access to key and value each time through that loop. And remember, there is no specific order guaranteed inside of a dictionary, unlike a list where we have an index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Order is ingrained within a list. In a dictionary, things are more blobby and less structured, and they're just floating around in there. So just be aware of that. There is no guarantee of order.